everybody. In this special episode today, we are going to do a deep dive into the natural anti-inflammatory support from Phoenix Nutritionals. We've been carrying this product for the whole 23 years, and we're going to discuss how it's evolved, how the science has come up to the levels of where Dr. Whiting had wanted them to make changes to it. And we're just going to take a real deep dive into the natural anti-inflammatory support all the way through it, not just like the basics of turmeric, stuff like that. But first, we wanted to address from our diabetes podcast a couple episodes back, one of the main things that we got a little bit of people got confused about. We want to address that. What causes elevated blood sugar? The excess insulin. Because excess insulin production damages insulin receptor site cells, requiring increasing amounts of insulin necessary to remove blood sugar effectively. Over time, insulin sensitivity decreases and blood sugar rises. We had a Dr. Terry Simpson, the MD. He's on TikTok, and he's saying that excess insulin decreases blood sugar, not increases. And which is not really completely correct, as insulin lowers blood sugar. However, excess insulin raises blood sugar over time.
Right. I mean, insulin's function is to remove blood sugar.
Yes.
Okay. And it does so effectively. But over time, the insulin in people who are predisposed to diabetes damages the insulin receptor site cells.
Yeah.
They become less sensitive.
Yeah.
That requires more insulin to remove blood sugar. And that in turn damages the cells even more. And so it's a round robin.
Yeah.
And over time, excess insulin causes a rise in blood sugar because the receptor site cells can no longer function properly.
Exactly. So let's go get right into it. I hope that cleared it up for everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share this with somebody you know who needs it, because I guarantee somebody in your life does need it. So the natural anti-inflammatory support from Phoenix Nutritionals that we've had here for 23 years, it's not just a turmeric supplement. It's combined with other supportive anti-inflammatory nutrients. And what it does is it's helped to support inflammation. And what is inflammation and what is the cause of it is where we're going to start.
Well, inflammation is a response due to a wide variety of potential factors: stress, diet, activity.
Sprained ankle.
Yeah, that would be acute inflammation.
Acute inflammation.
And so that's the body's response system to these external or internal stimulus.
Okay. And so what is the difference of acute would be a sprained ankle, and
Yes.
chronic inflammation would be what?
Arthritis,
Okay.
diabetes, cardiovascular problems. In fact, almost every chronic degenerative disease and disorder that we know about has at least partial roots in the inflammatory response.
And does diet affect inflammation at all?
Boy, do you bet it does.
It does.
There are pro-inflammatory foods. Most of those contain the omega fatty acid number 6.
Okay.
So we've got 3 and 6 and also 9 as far as the omegas go. Well, 3 is a natural anti-inflammatory. 6 is a pro-inflammatory, and because most processed foods are high in 6 and low in 3, essentially we have created a diet of pro-inflammatory foods.
Got it. And so which foods can help reduce inflammation?
Fruits, vegetables, non-processed foods.
So stuff that's high in 3s and 9s.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Seafood.
Seafood too.
Yeah, seafood is very high in 9s, for example.
Oh yeah, like salmon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how can someone tell if they have chronic inflammation?
Well, you're going to hurt.
Okay.
I mean, unless there is something called silent inflammation, which you don't know unless you're tested for it, because as the name implies, you don't feel it. Silent. Yeah. And that's behind a lot of chronic disorders that our society faces today. But certainly, chronic and acute inflammation you would feel in the way of swelling, discomfort, pain, loss of mobility, etc.
So how does stress affect inflammation? Probably makes it worse, right?
It makes it worse. Stress has a profound effect on the hormones of the body, the endocrine system, the adrenal system, and when your adrenal glands are overworked because of excess stress, they produce a hormone called cortisol.
Yeah.
Cortisol is very pro-inflammatory, and so there you are. Insulin, which we talked about a bit ago, to excess, is a very pro-inflammatory hormone.
Got it.
So when you start to add all these things up, stress and diet become two major factors.
And so inflammation is harmful, but it's also beneficial. For example, I sprained my ankle and it's got real fat.
And it swells on and it's hard to walk on.
Yeah.
That's nature. That's nature's cast.
Yeah.
Instead of putting a plaster cast on there, that's what nature does. So it deliberately swells it on, makes it less mobile, and makes it uncomfortable because you want to rest it so it can heal.
Yeah. And so what lifestyle changes can help reduce inflammation? Diet is one of them.
Diet is one of them. Get away from so much highly processed foods. Manage stress more effectively. And, we have addressed those situations and we can certainly revisit them again because stress management is so necessary, and it's a broad subject to address. But those are two things that you can do immediately. But because of the lifestyle humans have created for themselves, it's almost impossible to avoid all these stressors, which is why natural anti-inflammatories, which have no side effects whatsoever, have become very popular and, in my opinion, very necessary.
Yeah. And so you've helped thousands of people lose weight over the years that I've known you and even before that. When people lose weight and really get their weight in check and make a couple lifestyle changes and start living a healthier life, can that reduce inflammation also?
Totally.
Yeah.
Excess body weight is a pro-inflammatory situation for several reasons. First of all, on the chemical level, the excess weight puts a stress on body hormones. On the physical level, when you're excessively overweight, what's it doing? It's putting stress
on joints
and connective tissue, which over time irritates them to the point where inflammation sets in.
Yeah. And then, how does curcumin found in turmeric compare to traditional anti-inflammatory medications like Nystatin?
Well, they work.
Or did I say that right? Yeah.
No, but that's all right.
How do you say that?
How do you say NSAIDs?
NSAIDs.
Yeah, it's
Sorry
an
about
acronym.
that.
NSAID stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs.
Okay.
And, we live in a world of acronyms.
Yeah.
So nobody knows what anybody's talking about. But absolutely. They work in a different way. NSAIDs or other anti-inflammatory drugs override the inflammatory response.
Okay.
And they also have some analgesic effects where they actually numb to a certain extent. Natural anti-inflammatories, on the other hand, work to regulate and reduce inflammation. And they do it much more safely. if you have a headache, which is an inflammatory response most of the time, but if you have a headache or you got a pain in your knee, you take those NSAIDs, those over-the-counter painkillers, and they work. And there's nothing wrong with doing that for the short term. But if you have chronic inflammatory pain and you rely on those NSAIDs long term, they eventually will damage your stomach and intestines and have a host of other side effects.
Yeah, and so then obviously the natural way to go is the better way to go if you can. How do turmeric supplements reduce inflammation caused by autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis?
Well, they work in the same way that they would for a chronic inflammatory response. They're interrupting the inflammatory process. And you need to keep in mind that natural anti-inflammatories don't work as fast, and they're not quite as strong as NSAIDs or other drugs, but they don't have any side effects either. So let's say somebody has a serious health problem, right? They've got rheumatoid arthritis. Let's talk about that. And they're taking 12 painkillers a day.
Yeah.
All right. And they introduce natural anti-inflammatories. Well, it may not be able to replace them because the pain is now, the inflammation is so severe.
Yeah.
But if by taking a natural anti-inflammatory, they can reduce their intake and dependency on the drugs by 50%, it's going to make their response over time a whole lot safer.
So turmeric supplements like natural anti-inflammatory support that have other stuff in it, supportive nutrients, they can be taken long term.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What's evidenced by that is the Indian cuisine, which relies heavily on turmeric spice, and none of them have ever OD'd on it, I don't think.
Yeah. How does the body absorb curcumin effectively, and if not, how can bioavailable be improved?
The answer to that is actually it doesn't. Curcumin from turmeric extract is quite difficult for the human body to absorb.
Okay.
However, we have found ways around that problem, and you should never take a turmeric supplement by itself.
Yeah.
Because you're going to only absorb 20% maybe. But when we combine it with things like black pepper extract, MSM, methyl sulfonomethane, boswellia extract, we get a combination that actually supports the utilization and absorption of curcumin from turmeric.
How does turmeric interact with other natural anti-inflammatory supplement components like ginger and boswellia?
Very well. In fact, there is a concept in biochemistry and in nutrition that the sum of the parts is more effective than the parts alone.
Yeah.
And that's because of the concept we call totality. So the more things that we can put into a supportive formula, the greater the benefit of all of them together as opposed to if you took them separately.
And so turmeric can help reduce inflammation in gut, improve gut health, and impact the joints beneficially too.
Yeah, it addresses the inflammatory response regardless of the cause of that response.
And so is there any, like you said, there's virtually no side effects going the natural route. Can turmeric and curcumin supplements help with like post-exercise inflammation, that kind of stuff?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure. But keep in mind that process is a little different. When you've got sore muscles after working out for not having done so for a while, what you're experiencing is lactic acid buildup.
Oh, yeah.
And lactic acid buildup is also pro-inflammatory.
Yeah.
So, again, it's like spraining your ankle. your body is trying to protect the muscle so it can recover.
Got it. And so how does like, let's say, anti-inflammatory support from Phoenix Nutritionals, how does it affect people with like allergies or asthma?
Well, again, the allergic response is to some extent pro-inflammatory.
Okay.
And so it addresses that. And for years I've been saying, that what you need is a full spectrum supplement as a baseline every day.
Yeah.
And I still believe that is overwhelmingly the case. However, in recent years, the last couple of years, I've begun to change my viewpoint. And I now wholeheartedly believe that everyone should take a natural anti-inflammatory support for two reasons. Number one, you cannot escape pro-inflammatory factors.
Yeah.
It's impossible now. Between foods and water and lifestyle and stress, it can't be done. And secondly, because there's no harm in doing so. Yeah. There's no side effects. It is a safe, effective bit of insurance to help control excess inflammation. And keep in mind that virtually every chronic degenerative disease and disorder facing humanity today has its origin, at least to some extent, in the pro-inflammatory response that goes on for months and years within our bodies.